Welcome to the Legends Behind the Craft podcast, where we feature top leaders in the wine and craft beverage industry with your host, Drew Hendricks. Now, let's get started with the show.
Drew Thomas Hendricks here. I'm the host of the Legends Behind the Craft podcast, where I talk with leaders in the wine and craft beverage industry. Past guests of Legends Behind the Craft include Josh Jacobs of Speakeasy, Cheryl Dursey of LibDiv, and Paul Mabry from Pix Wine. If you haven't listened to these yet, be sure to check them out and subscribe. Today's episode is sponsored by Barrels Ahead. At Barrels Ahead, we work with you to implement a one-of-a-kind marketing strategy, one that highlights your authenticity, tells your story, and connects you with your ideal customers. In short, we help wineries and craft beverage producers unlock their story to unleash their revenue. Go to barrelsahead.com today to learn more. Today, I also have Bianca Harmon on the show, who's one of our direct-to-consumer marketing strategists. How's it going, Bianca?
It's going good. Thanks, Drew.
Thank you. And we're excited to talk to Gary. Gary's our guest today. He's the founder of Gary's Wine and Marketplace. Gary opened his first wine shop back in 1987 in New Jersey, and now operates 4 stores in the New Jersey area, dominating the New York metro area. And in 2019, Gary made his leap to the West Coast, opening his first store in St. Helena. Welcome to the show, Gary.
Drew and Bianca, thank you very much for having me.
Well, thank you so much for being on. And thank you so much. For those people that are listening asynchronously, this is Friday afternoon, so we were honored that Gary's taking time out of his one of the busiest retail days to talk to us. Tell me, how did you get started in the wine industry?
You know, Drew, I think we were speaking at one point, and a lot of people in the wine industry I talked to, nobody wakes up in high school and says, I want to go into beverage alcohol. I want to open up a wine shop. It all happens accidentally. And, when I was going to university, I decided to major in something very, employable, and that was political science and a minor of English. And at the university, which was Rider, it was a great accounting school. So half my friends were getting degrees in accounting and finance, and they all had a clear path to their success. I was doing political science and English and had no plan for the future. And when I graduated, my father was a traditional death of a salesman liquor salesman. So he worked for a wholesaler in New Jersey, and he was older when I graduated college. So he was thinking about retiring. He said, "Kid, would you think about going into liquor sales?" And it seemed like a no-brainer, right? I spent 4 years in college drinking. So I had drinking down to a science. When I went to college, the drinking age was 18, so I wasn't violating any laws. And I was president of my university for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
So I knew how to sell myself. So if I could sell myself and I knew how to drink, I could be a liquor seller. So the end of my senior year, I started selling liquor and wine. But it was really, back at that period of time, it was really all about liquor. Fast forward, it was the worst experience of my life. Have you ever done outside sales, either one of you?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
I haven't sold it back from store to store.
I haven't done that. It's funny because they assumed, because my father was in the business, that I knew something about how to sell. So they gave me a list of unsold accounts. And so it was like one of those old computer printouts that was like 10 inches thick. And you just look at it, and these are all accounts that my company didn't sell. And after going into a dozen of them, there's a reason they were unsold, because they were dumps. And so it was a humbling experience. I hated every minute of it. But fortunately for me, the summer of my first year, I had vacation, and I was meeting a college buddy in San Francisco. And he was smarter than I was, so he had a accounting degree. And he said, if we're going to San Francisco, and if you visit a winery, it's tax deductible. You can write off your whole trip. So we rented a car, met in San Francisco, rented a car, and went up to my only Napa winery, which was Louis Martini.
Oh, yeah.
And it was the second winery I've been to in my life. So I understood the wineries. when I first started, they took a road trip from New Jersey to Brooklyn, where we visited Manischewitz Winery.
Mm.
And in visiting Manischewitz Winery, I didn't see any grapes. I didn't see any vines. I didn't see any winemakers. I saw a lot of tanker trucks and stuff. So I didn't really have an experience with wineries. And when we got to Louis Martini, I asked for Mr. Martini, and a farmer came to say hello.
Oh.
And I had it never came to me that the guy who makes the wine and owns the vineyards and owns the labels is an actual farmer.
Mm-hmm.
And he did everything. And we spent 4 hours together, 5 hours together during harvest. It was an early harvest, 1980, 79 or 80.
Oh, wow.
79. And he had me taste grapes that were coming in. He took me into the vineyard right behind the winery. He brought me into the basement of the winery. I don't know much about winery back then, but he had Johannesburg Riesling, Ray Riesling, Dry Riesling, Sweet Riesling, Pinot Chardonnay.
Uh-huh.
He was so excited to show me his new Merlot, Zinfandel, Barbera, Mountain Chablis, Screw Top.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so I tasted all through the wines. And when I got back to New Jersey, I was like enthralled with Louis Martini. And since I wasn't doing a good job selling liquor, I said, let me focus on wine and let me focus on Louis Martini wine.
Oh.
So I started tasting wine all the time. I took Kevin Zraly's Windows of the World wine class.
That was my first book. That was my first
right.
book.
And that's it was just getting going. I was at Windows of the World every week for almost 2 years going to different classes.
Mm-hmm.
And so by the time I was 24, I probably knew more about wine in New Jersey than any liquor store.
Yeah.
Right? Because they weren't even thinking about it. And it was now 82, 83, and wine was still not, Paul Masson was my biggest wine.
Mm-hmm.
Blue Nun was my biggest imported wine, maybe some B&G Beaujolais. So it was really a different time. And I was fortunate in 1987, one of my accounts needed to sell a store of his. And it was a very small store, like 1,200 square feet and doing no volume. And he gave me the opportunity to buy it. And that changed the course of history for me.
I imagine. Then we had a similar kind of creation story. We're about 10 years ahead of you or behind you. I started in '93, but with a degree in philosophy and Attic Greek. So what are you going to do with a degree in philosophy? I thought I was going to be a professor. Ended up needing to get a job and got a job as a stock boy and just kind of went through the Windows of the World course and just caught the bug and just never left. So we founded the wine in 1987. Well, how did you get this unique name, Erie Wine?
So it's funny. I can take a step back. So we opened. We had no money.
Oh.
Right? I had zero money because I was 29 when this whole thing was going on, and we just bought a house. So I went to my brother, who said he would split it with me, and whatever I'd put up, he'd put up. So we still had no money. So, like any good business plan, what you do is you borrow against your credit cards and your commission. So, and the owner at the time couldn't take the store back. That was the deal by law. So he structured a long enough payout so we could afford it.
Okay.
And so the first store was in 87, and the name of the store was Shoppers Discount Liquor Wine Warehouse.
Shoppers Discount. That's a tongueful.
It was a tongueful, and it was part of a co-op we advertised with every week. And fast forward about 5 years, we moved from the 1,200 square foot location to a 13,000 square foot old car dealership. And we moved into this car dealership, and I didn't want to be just a big liquor store. So we put in fresh cut cheeses, meat, charcuterie, pastries, desserts, breads, giftware. And so we became not just a liquor store. And I was having trouble with the identity because you read the sign that says Shoppers Discount Liquor Wine Warehouse, and then you walk in and there's fresh cut cheese and there's cheesemongers cutting cheese. And, so I hired a facilitator. First time we spent money on anything like that. And the facilitator, we brought in a dozen customers in the morning, or 2 dozen customers, brought in bagels and coffee. And we sat down, the facilitator took control, and he's got the whiteboard up. And he says, okay, what's the name of the store you go to?
Mm-hmm.
And nobody knew.
Oh,
It was Warehouse Liquors. It was Wine Discounter. It was Shoppers Wine. It was Discount Liquors. It was, and we were spending $400,000 a year in advertising,
mm-hmm.
and nobody knew the name of the store. So the facilitator said, so if you don't really know the name of the store, what do you tell people where you're going?
Uh-huh.
And virtually every one of them said, oh, I'm going to go see Gary to have him pick out some wine for me.
Oh.
So he wrote Gary on the board. And then there was some debate if I should change my name to Jacques or Pierre or something more sexy. And I was like, no, I'm not smart enough. So that's how it became in 1999, 2000. We went from Shoppers Discount Liquor Wine Warehouse to Gary's Wine and Marketplace.
Oh, interesting.
Crazy. Yeah.
That's interesting. And it was the food that carried you through. And
it's the food that caused us to change our image. And it's also the food that got us the second location.
Okay.
So we opened up in 87, and then the second location we opened up in 2001.
Mm.
And to keep the history of our growth going, the third location we opened up in 2008. And since you're philosophy and I'm political science, I'll take it and look at it from an economic point of view. There was an economic meltdown in 87.
Oh, yes.
There was the tech bubble in 2001.
Yep.
There was the housing crisis of 2008. So we opened our first 3 stores right as the economy ended.
So you're a leading indicator. Are you opening?
So I am definitely a leading indicator. And we opened up our 4th store in 2017.
Oh.
And nothing went wrong.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, the jinx is is gone.
You broke the trend.
Broke the trend. And then what happens?
Until 2019 hit, right?
Yeah, then we had, I come to Napa a lot. Even before we bought the store, I'd come to Napa every year for Premier Napa Valley. The Vintners Association has done a great job once they saw my name was Gary's, not Shoppers Discount Liquor.
Got a little more credit.
They invited me to Premier Napa Valley, and we've been going there for every year for over 25 years now. And so I'd go every year in February for Premier, and I would go once or twice a year. I would either bring a group with me, or I would just do some recon. Every time I went to Napa, I'd go to Dean & DeLuca.
Mm.
I loved the energy of the space. I'm addicted to caffeine. I love the coffee. I love and we were doing cheese and charcuterie. They were doing cheese and charcuterie on a big scale. So I saw Dean & DeLuca going out of business. And so February 19, it looked like death.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called my wife and I said, Liz, if Dean & DeLuca goes out of business, what do you think about us taking it over? And as we joke now, she's like, yeah, honey, whatever you think. I'm convinced she wasn't listening. She was like doing a crossword puzzle or reading or something. And the good news now is she listens to every word I say. So we took it over in July of 19.
Mm.
And we got it open in record time. We opened October 3rd of 19, which a lot of the construction people I was working with said is impossible. They turned our power off on October 5th of 2019. And a fire started on the 17th, I believe, and we lost power. So from the time we opened until November 1st, we closed twice, lost all of our cheese once.
Mm.
Had to reset the store. On March 1st through March 7th, we had the busiest week of 2020. We had the busiest week of the history of the store.
Really?
And then we closed.
Yeah.
For the pandemic.
So last bit in.
So the curse of the economic meltdown is over, but the new curse of fire and pandemic has entered the scene.
Hmm. What a challenge. So when you founded it and it was off to the races, did you make any changes between your East Coast setup and your West Coast setup when you opened up in
Oh,
St. Louis?
absolutely. East Coast, the laws are different, right? So in New Jersey, you don't automatically get a liquor license if you own a grocery store. So
Yeah.
we sell jug wines. We sell Franzia and Boda Box, and we sell Budweiser, Coors, Miller, Heineken,
Hmm.
Corona, and high end cheese and Petrus.
Hmm.
In Napa, I wanted to maintain the integrity of what Dean DeLuca used to be
Sure.
on steroids. I wanted to take what they did and do it better.
Mm.
So we have a full kitchen. We have everything is made in house. It's really a gourmet petite restaurant, right?
Mhm.
Great sandwiches. We have ahi tuna poke bowl on Fridays, which the I said I want to do everything fresh. We're doing the poke bowl, and on Thursday I see this huge tuna sitting in the back I'm like, what are we doing? They said, you said fresh, and fresh means it comes in on Thursday. They break it down,
Mhm.
and we serve it on Friday. So the footprint and feel of the store is gourmet, and it
Mhm.
is great food, great meat and charcuterie and cheese, great coffee and pastries. Some pastries we do with in house, but we just don't have enough people. Some we buy, and the wine department, I think, is as good as you get in the region.
Mhm.
And it's really divided in half. I like to say it's for tourism,
Mhm.
meaning Napa cabs, Napa shards, Caneros, and for the winemakers, imports.
Mm.
So we
Sure.
have a great selection of bubbles. They love, we sell a huge amount of champagne,
Mhm.
Burgundy, Piedmont,
Mhm.
and then the fun, interesting wines, Gruner Veltliner, Alsatian wines,
Oh, sure.
Riesling. So we've divided the store kind of into half, and that's half to serve the local community.
Mhm.
And we serve them in two ways. One, we buy their wine to sell to consumers, to tourists.
Mhm.
Two, we sell them wine that they're looking to drink.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's constantly looking for diversity on there.
Yeah, and we have that, which is awesome.
Mm. That's fantastic. How do you, as far as the way the sales goes, is California's got a little, your West Coast store has a little more of a, let's say upscale is not the right word, but has a broader, more gourmet selection.
It has probably a larger, it's definitely a higher percentage of the total business is gourmet for sure.
Have you run into any issues in the last year trying to keep the store shelves with all the supply chain as a vendor?
The first issue we've had and the hardest one is personnel.
Yes.
So if you guys know anybody looking for help, we need everybody. I thought it would be, I was very naive, to be completely honest. I was smitten with Dean and DeLuca.
Mhm.
I'm in love with Napa and St. Helena. And the opportunity came, and I said, why couldn't we make it successful?
Mhm.
Well, to make it successful, especially running stores on both coasts, I need a great team in place.
Mhm.
And now I believe we have a great team, albeit we're still missing a shortstop and a center fielder.
Oh,
Right? We have a great general manager. We have, a great chef. We have a great wine team, but the wine team is short a couple people. Our cheese and charcuterie department is short a couple people. And our grocery, we don't have a grocery buyer, and we've not been able to fill half of the positions.
Yeah, we see the shortage of human capital across the industry. It's
Yeah.
it's talked a lot about, but so much focus has been on the supply chain, and you stop thinking about the human supply.
Which for us is a greater problem, right? The supply chain would be a bigger problem if we only made one wine and we couldn't get bottles, glass, right? But if I run out of X wine, I could buy wine. I'll find something to sell.
Sure.
If I can't get Piave cheese, I could get another cheese, right? So the reality is we're never out of everything. there is some frustration. We can't get containers.
Mhm.
So we have to be a little bit more flexible, or
Mhm.
we can't get something. So it causes we have to be more creative, flexible, but we can still run our business.
Mhm.
As you say, human capital is our biggest challenge by far.
And kind of talking about human capital and also just your success, like I've worked with so many independent wine stores. I worked in an independent wine store, and it's a tough job. What's your secret to success? How did you get to 4 locations, and how did you compete against some of these really large? Not that you have multiple locations, but I wouldn't consider you to be a chain store. You're not a Total Wines. You're not a Bev Mo. How do you guys stay competitive, and what do you attribute your success to be?
I, I I think the beginning of the success was raw hard work, right? I'm 7 days a week open to close. That's who I am. That's what I did. My brother, who's no longer in the business, and I were talking this morning about the old days.
Mm-hmm.
When we had the first store, and it was, if you picture a strip center, and that's where the first store was, in a strip center.
Mm-hmm.
And every Friday we would get weekend deliveries, and we had no room in the store, so we'd put it on the porch, we called it.
Mm-hmm.
And every Friday night I would hand truck in everything.
Mm-hmm.
Saturday morning I would take it out. Saturday night I'd bring it back in, and if we had a good weekend, there would be nothing left. On Monday we'd start all over again. So just raw hard work, right? Passion and knowledge has gotten us to where we are. What's continuing to get us to compete with, as you say, the BevMos or the Totals, and even in the e-commerce space, is a couple things. One is my son has come in, and he came in during getting his MBA and during COVID, and it's helped our technology, which was good, become great. So we have a fantastic mobile app. So during the pandemic, we had curbside pickup and local deliveries when we closed our doors.
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to maintain business. We have an upgraded website. We have technology for reorders and managing our inventories. And then the second part of what I think makes us successful is we work with a group called the Wine and Spirits Guild of America.
Oh.
And it's a group of independent, multi-generational, family-owned businesses. And I joke, before my son came into business, we were the first generation of a multi-generational, family-owned business.
Mm-hmm.
But there are stores from around the country. There's twins in out of Austin originally, but they have over 100 stores. There's stores in Kentucky, stores in New York, and in Connecticut and Massachusetts. So we get together twice a year, live, and once a month on Zoom, and we really share best practices. And so by meeting with
a
like-minded,
mastermind network.
say again,
It's a mastermind network of
it is,
stores.
and
great.
with all the stores involved, it's about $3 billion worth of retail sales from stores that are independent to 100-store chains. But we each have similar problems, right? We each have the manpower problem, right? We each have supply chain. We each have wholesaler relationships. We each deal with e-commerce competitors, and e-commerce competitors are also wineries now, right? They're our best friends and our biggest competitors.
Yeah, I was in touch.
But it's always good to have somebody to talk to, and the Wine Spirits Guild gives us that opportunity.
Support network. So what advice would you have, like, to an independent wine store that may not have access to this sort of leadership base? How does a wine store compete today? 22.
It's a challenge, right? As we all know. But if you're an independent store and you're up on what's going, you have to be a student, right? You can't know it all, because if you knew it all yesterday, it's changing today, right? Who would have thought that Greek would become an important part of our stores, and we're growing our Greek? Who would think that we would go from 6 Portuguese wines to 50 Portuguese wines?
Yeah.
So as an independent, you have to constantly be reinventing yourself and changing the selection. If we only carried Napa Cab, we'd be out of business, right? So it's a matter of being business savvy and knowing what the market is looking for, and also being able to make sharp turns when necessary.
listening to your customers.
Absolutely. And talking to your customers and listening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And working.
like it's so hard to resist the temptation than just to compete on price. It can't race to the bottom, so you can't rate, and then you also can't compete on like selection, because there's always going to be a store that has a couple more wines than you. So you got to compete on actually offering the right selection to your audience, and that, as you just said, it requires you to pivot. And as you also said, that you have a different selection in California as you do in New Jersey, because it's a different audience.
And also, like every year, we meet in January.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my wine buying team and the managers. We're like, okay, what's hot, what's not?
Mm-hmm.
Where do we have problems? Oh, there's not going to be any Chablis in 2021. Okay, let's load up on Chablis now. Let's load. Maybe is there a Macon that we could buy in its place? And we're constantly looking at what is available that we can be bringing in, and how do we adjust our mix? Because you're right, we can't have the largest selection, nor do I want the largest selection, and we can't be the cheapest. Although we fought that fight for years in New Jersey, trying to be the cheapest.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be the best, and cheapest isn't always the best.
Mm-hmm.
But having what people are looking for is the approach. Who would have thought we needed to have RTDs or canned wines 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
Yeah. How have you seen that segment grow? Is it
it's not as big for us as it is for stores, you know, like the ferry wine merchant.
Mm-hmm.
I believe does a huge amount, because people going on the ferry to go home grab a can of wine or a RTD. You know, stores near the hub of commuter in New York and New Jersey. But it's booming for us. It's up significantly. And 3 years ago, we didn't treat it. Now I have a category manager that does RTDs, canned wines, and better for you category, which is
what's the
no alcohol spirits and low alcohol wines.
Low alcohol is a big new segment. What is RTD?
Ready to drink.
Oh,
so that is, okay. You know, they're used to, you know, it's funny, nothing has changed. When I was growing up, they had the cans, club. Club. What's it called?
The Bacardi Club cans?
I think it was, I don't know, from Cube Line or one of those guys that's now, and there was Chi-Chi's margarita mix. So there's been these ready to go, you know, prepared, and now it's huge. Now there's, you know, Moscow Mules and gin and tonic and all these things, and it's become a real category. So we treat it now like a real category, and I have a category manager who's responsible for making sure we have the right products, the best products, not all of the products. And if something doesn't work, we take it out and put something new in.
Yeah, no, that's smart. As far as cans, so they are all the rage here in California, or at least down where I am. I'm in Southern California with the outdoor culture. I mean, it's like, I don't want to say it, but it's like the soccer mom's new beverage is having the canned wines. And how do you make space for a new category in your stores? Because all the shelves are always taken up. You have to actually, something has to go in order to put something new in, especially when a category starts to go. How do you decide what to eliminate?
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the challenge. And what was happening is right, and so we at the beginning it was random, right? But we've gone through and we eliminate slow movers and we've moved things around, and we've tightened things up, and we've created real sections at all the stores, so you really could identify that it is a low alcohol section.
Sure.
You could identify that it's a ready to drink, you know. And again, the shelves are different. You have to have different shelf set, right? Because there's cans, so the shelves don't need to be this big. It's you have to play and constantly be on top of it.
Kind of shifting the discussion here a little bit to e-commerce, and that's constantly changing, and it came into its own with COVID when everybody just started buying online. Have you seen, and you guys have invested in the technology, How do you how have you seen that shift now that we have all the direct consumer wine sales coming in, and then the new platform Picks Wine that allows all the wine stores to kind of sell in this aggregated marketplace?
Yeah, again, it's talk about a moving target, right? Just when you think you understand it, it changes dramatically. As I'm sure you know, the wholesaler tier of the three-tier system is very diametrically opposed to direct-to-consumer. And by virtue of that, they're very opposed to retail stores selling and shipping. So every day we turn around, there's a state that we can't ship to, there's a state we can ship to. So the logistics of that are challenging. The costs of shipping. Amazon has taught you that free shipping should be a part of the program.
Sure.
When it goes from $9 a case to $40 a case to ship, depending on where it's going to, free shipping becomes a real burden. So it's something where we're finding that the key is items that are either unique, unique meaning very limited production, very limited exposure. Maybe it's a vintage change where we got a great opportunity. You can't just throw something out there and expect it to sell. So again, like the shelf sets in the store, the email opportunities have to be thought differently than 5 years ago, for sure. And you have to have technology to support it. They've got to be able to go on your mobile app and shop the same way they would shop from a laptop or a desktop.
Very good. So what's as we're kind of wrapping down, what's next for Gary Wines in Marketplace?
A day off. It really depends who you ask. My 30-year-old son is thinking we need to open it up in Chicago and in Dallas and in Miami and in DC. My Napa general manager is thinking we need to open up in Sausalito and in so it depends. And I'm thinking, who knows? So we're taking it I've always taken it slowly, except for the 4th to the 5th store. That was pretty quick.
Yeah, well, strike while the iron's hot there.
But we'll see. There's as the world changes, we will change. I can guarantee you, we will not look the same next year.
That's some great advice. Being just able to be nimble, pivot, listen to your audience, and adapt, knowing that the one constant is the inconsistency, and that tomorrow will be different. We just don't know what it is, and just got to be careful in that, and you just got to rest in and that also allows you to get market share because you're able to change quicker.
Absolutely. And I read everything. You're reading articles about what's hot, what's going on, and you're just constantly reinventing. And I think for any business, not just beverage alcohol, but you need to, first off, you need to work hard. You need to understand and really become an expert in the category. And you got to be nimble.
Yes.
Maybe I should write a book.
Yes.
There you go.
How to pivot with Gary. Oh man, Gary, this has been great. Where can people find out more about you?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking. We have a website, garyswine.com. And you could sign up right on there. We have a mobile app. Just put it on your telephone. And we will get you deals and offers. We will ship it to your house depending on where you live. We'll deliver it depending on where you live. And we'll take good care of you. So it's garyswine.com.
Oh, sounds fantastic. Well, thank you, Gary. Thank you so much for joining us today. And get back to those wine sales. It's Friday afternoon.
All right, sure. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks,
Take
Gary.
Care. I look forward to seeing you when I'm back in town.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Legends Behind the Craft podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.